Trapped by the belief that I'm not good enough, bound by the limitations and the lies that consumed my world, this was me. It wasn't until I took the biggest leap in my life to know and trust the power within. And it was at that moment I made a choice. My past will not define me anymore. Hello, I am Teri, and I know I am not alone in this. Over the years, I have found that the number one mistake that we make is that we get in the way of our own success story. Yes, I said it. On this show, together we'll tackle limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, getting stuck, fear, doubt, overwhelm, and the imposter syndrome. Join us on this journey designed to transport you beyond your limitations to a world where anything is possible. This is Talking with Teri. Hello, and welcome back to Talking with Teri, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And our guest today we're just having a hoot talking offline. So her name is Dr. Melanie Obitz-Bukartek. Got it. Fantastic. She's an author, an entrepreneur, and award-winning educator with decades of experience teaching people how to discover and enhance their superpowers. Welcome, Melanie, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited. Okay, so I love hearing the overcomer story because I know that a lot of entrepreneurs, we look at other folks and we say, oh my goodness, they look at them now, right, in their third chapter or their fifth chapter, whatever that might be for them, and we see people being successful and we're like, oh, how can I be more like them, and we sometimes will compare, but I know that there's been challenges and barriers and blocks that you've had to overcome. So share with us your story, and then we'll just kind of weave in kind of what has been your biggest challenge and barriers that you've had to overcome to get to where you're at today.
Sure thing. Well, of course, lots of barriers, but we'll start with how things are going really great right now. And so I am a full-time business owner. I'm all in with my own business, my own companies, and I currently have two companies. I have one company where we work with high schoolers writing their college application essays. And the goal here is to help students harness the great power of writing. And at the end, they do get a high quality application essay, but they get more than that. They learn how to leverage the power of writing. They learn how to own their narrative and make decisions in their storytelling that does come across in this essay, but also can transfer to other areas of their life.
Beautiful. Okay.
And then I'm also in the beginning phases of growing another company called Unhindered Writing, where it has a larger audience of adults, where my ultimate goal is to help elevate lives by ensuring that absolutely everyone can leverage the power of writing. So learning how to purposefully and strategically use writing as a tool to transform whatever it might be. So my first book is about business owners and how business owners can harness writing. If we think about all of the writing, everybody on this who's listening to this, you're an entrepreneur, you use writing all the time. When you filed for your LLC, when you submitted grant applications, your emails, texts. Teri, you were sharing how you were without your phone for days.
5 days, folks.
It was bananas.
I know. My dog broke my phone. It didn't eat it, but he broke it. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was hysterical. I came into the room and it was on my chair and he must have jumped. Here's my theory. He jumped off the couch, hit the chair, bonked the chair down or bonked the phone down. And I came in later and it was laying on the floor on the carpet. So I was like, oh, it's fine. An hour later, I went to use the phone and toast.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute toast. So I know. So but you're right. Writing is such an essential in everything that we do. And some would actually say it's kind of a lost art because we're getting into the text messaging where we're using the letter R for ARE and, we're creating short steps, and so there is a beautiful art to writing. For sure.
Oh, sure. We can use it in so many different ways. And knowing who our audience is, if our audience is able to understand that the letter R means ARE, then great, that works. Yeah. And you said something really interesting. I actually wrote it down when you told me. You said when you got your phone, the first thing you did was that you looked at your phone. It wasn't that you listened to messages, it's that you looked at it because there was writing on there. Because writing is this huge part of our lives, no matter what we do. And specifically, if we are running businesses, we've got texts and emails on our phone all the time. So it really does matter how we use them and how strategically we place the words that we place.
Wonderful. So what is so growing two businesses, right? Like,
Mhm.
I have a similar, story. I grew a very large company and it became owner independent. And then that gave me the freedom to, do what I feel called to do today, which is being here with
Mhm.
everyone here.
Yes.
What has been your biggest challenge or barrier, when it comes to, and it can simply be like, what was the biggest challenge that you've had when it comes to like mindset and
Mhm.
overcoming for your business?
It was myself, just me getting in my way.
Yeah.
And if we specifically drill down to what that concrete fear was, it was the fear of being misrepresented. And
Mm,
that kept me quiet and it kept me
yeah.
hidden and it kept me at a really stable job. I
Yeah.
had my dream job. When I was 19, I decided I wanted to become a professor. And then I took a path to make sure that I achieved that goal. And I had a really stable paycheck and I had health insurance and a really great retirement plan. They
Yeah.
more than matched my little 3% I put in. They put in 11%. So I'm living the thing that I thought I wanted to
Yeah.
live as a child. But what I have come to recognize is that fear of being misrepresented started at a really young age. My dad was an entrepreneur. Some things went south in his business, and it was on the front page of my hometown newspaper from a little town in Western Pennsylvania. It was mortifying, not that his business had a situation where it struggled, but how it was misrepresented in print for others to see and judge, and then continue the misunderstanding and misrepresentation of my father and his business. And people in my community would either talk about us in negative ways without really understanding the full story, or some adults were brazen enough to say things to my face as a child. And it really made me want to dim my light.
Yeah. I can only
And
imagine. I mean,
as I got, go
how
ahead.
traumatic, how traumatic. Yeah, I can only imagine. And I think you know, I think the listeners can really relate to on any level, from that large level of just, that fear of, speaking out. And if, what if I say something that is misconstrued or
Mm,
misunderstood or whatever, even
mhm,
to just, little conversations that we have, we know that we get that like, oh my gosh, like, it makes us stay up late at night thinking and processing, like, what did I say? And how did I say that? And like, you're right. If we live in that place of fear and doubt and worry and what ifs, it
mhm.
really does shrink our ability to create. It becomes, yeah, we shrink in, we become small,
Mhm.
versus becoming our expansive self.
Exactly.
Mm,
And because that was a fear of mine from such a young age, that I didn't even know it was a fear. It was just a part of me. I did not know it was there until relatively recently.
mhm.
And then I had another person in my life with the title of family member, and that person would spend, very unfortunately, time and energy misrepresenting me on purpose. And
What?
I didn't know that this could happen. And it did over and over. And it kept me super small to say to I was, let me stay off this radar. I am uninterested in what is happening. But we all get to a point where we are supposed to be expansive, and
Yeah.
we are. I learned how to set boundaries, and for me, coming on this podcast is one way that I am saying that is not a fear. I am going to do my very best to articulate as clearly as possible. My genuine hope is that the listeners are understanding what I am saying, that maybe they're even getting excited about thinking of writing as this tool that they can harness in a way that they want. And I'm also learning that if people are misrepresenting me, that is not about me.
Yeah.
And took
So
me years to learn that. And that was the ultimate understanding of that is when I finally stopped working multiple jobs and released that really stable job to
yeah.
say, I do this full time because
Yeah.
I believe in it with every part of my being.
So let's unpack this a little bit,
Okay.
because yes, you said I set boundaries,
Mm,
but I mean, how have you gone from like, being restricted in a fear-based place, right? Going, oh my gosh, am I going to say something wrong? And am I going to a place of like, you know what, I'm tipping my toe out there and I am finding, that it's safe. So how
mm,
did you go from that to that place for our listeners to really unpack this for our listeners so that, if they're in a same similar place,
mhm,
how can they also step out there? Because I think that what you're talking about, and I am so grateful that you're bringing this, to the forefront, because I think everything that we go through, every experience, and especially the ones that leave that kind of those scars, if you will, it is
mhm,
like almost our life path to overcome it. And it's like, okay, here's my life path. Here's how I'm going to overcome this.
mhm,
And we were speaking offline earlier, and I was joking that language is not my first language and how I struggle with language. And which is interesting, it's kind of, it plays in there. It's like, okay, because there's sometimes I say things that probably do get interpreted the wrong way, or how I say it or whatever. And I'm like,
mhm,
it still hasn't stopped me to say, you know what, I have a message. I'm here to, share it. And it may not come out the way, folks, it may not make sense, but it's, I'm doing my best. Right. And so,
mhm.
and when people see that I'm living in my authenticity, I think they can appreciate that. Right.
Absolutely.
So share with us kind of like that, go down in the weeds with us for a minute
Sure.
and kind of share with us kind of like that transformation process for you.
Mhm. I have two moments that really stick out as helping me through this. And they both ultimately taught me that if somebody is misunderstanding, that's one, that's on me to be really clear. If
Mm,
they are misrepresenting, that's on
yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And that was massive for me.
Mm,
And so one way this learning came through was actually through a book, and I'm hoping you'll remember the author's name because it is escaping me in this moment. The book was Big Magic, but she wrote Eat, Pray,
oh,
Love.
Elizabeth Gilbert. Yeah.
Okay, Elizabeth Gilbert. Yes,
Yeah.
we all. I feel confident
Yeah.
the listeners know her.
Yeah.
And so in Big Magic, she talks about how she was speaking about her book, and somebody came up to her and said, "Oh my gosh, that part where you put in about leaving your abusive husband." And Elizabeth says to us, the reader, now in her book, "I didn't write that. That is not how my book starts. My husband did not do those things to me. But this person, her interpretation is because she brought herself to the book, which is what people do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone on this call, y'all bringing yourselves, and we're happy that you are. And
Yeah.
so you bring yourself and you interpret things the best that you can
Yeah.
with your own interpretation. So when I read that, I recognized Elizabeth was not mad that this person had a misunderstanding. She had done her best. She had written this book. It was understood differently, but it actually had served that reader in that way.
Yeah.
That started my understanding of people are always going to bring themselves. Now,
Yeah.
this family member who purposefully would misrepresent me, it was that person's understanding, and that is how they wanted to view me. And it fueled them to say untruths about me.
Yeah.
And so I started to learn this is not about me. This is about that person. Super
Yeah.
hurtful. It didn't make it hurt any less, Teri.
The projection,
But
whatever they're experiencing themselves, projecting it
yeah,
onto
yes.
you. And yeah, I've had not family members, but I've had other people in my life that have done
Mm,
that very same thing. And it's like, you know what, I'm just going to do me. and I'm
Mhm.
just going to, you do you, and we're
Mhm.
going to distance, and I'm just not going to give you any more attention, or and eventually that person, kind of disappeared, meaning like they
Mhm.
just, they're still around. They just don't
Sure.
engage with me. I don't engage with them, because it's like, what,
Mhm.
clearly, your desire is to, misunderstand me, misrepresent me, and that's okay. Like, we don't need to play in the same sandbox. See you
Yeah,
later.
sure. And
Love
that
you. I
is
bless and
okay.
release, right? Bless and release.
Right, right. That
Yes.
it is everyone is functioning the best they can at that time.
Yeah.
And that is okay to function the best that you can without hurting somebody else. Super, right? Like that's
Yeah.
how I view it. I
Yeah.
have yeah. And then I have this other thing that really helped me. It's sort of a very easy to me reminder. And I'm wondering if, although my story is about tennis, if the listeners will have their own story that this makes sense for them.
Yeah.
So my story is about tennis, where I've played tennis for a long time. I played in college. It is a sport that I absolutely love. And I have worked incredibly hard on having a really great serve. It it took me years, and I am so proud of it because it is just this. It's a great part of the game, and it can set the tone for a match, and nice points can be won that way. And I oftentimes play with people who are so kind and complimentary. I'll even have I just this week, as a matter of fact, true story. I had a really kind woman who had played against. She sent me an email saying your serve is killer. So nice. Now, every now and again, I will play against somebody who complains about my serve. And I find this so fascinating. As an athlete, I know that's not about me. I'm not changing my serve for this other person.
Yeah.
But I have had people complain to my face. I've had people complain to my teammates saying that serve is too hard. She shouldn't be serving like that. That spin. And I know that's not my issue. I
Yeah.
worked very hard at this, and it's a good part of my game. And that helps me outside of tennis. That
Yeah.
when I have somebody who is upset about my light shining
Yeah.
and me teaching that writing can absolutely be a tool for life, if they are misrepresenting that, taking things out of context, that is not on me.
Yeah. And I think that's a great message there, and a great visual that we can see and understand. Like, when people are bringing their own stuff to the mix,
Mhm.
again, they're going to see it through their filter. I always joked, as because I was a therapist for 25 years, we all have like these little invisible like lenses, right? That we
Mm.
have on, and we see the world through those lenses. And your lenses and my lenses are different, but they're invisible. You can't see mine and I can't see
Yeah.
yours, but we
Mhm.
look through them and we perceive and we experience the world based on that information, based on that previous programming that we've had from, day one. All of that programming comes with us in every single experience, that we go through. And so you're absolutely right. So I love that. And, for the listeners, taking away a little nugget here is, really, what is yours and what is mine that I own? Okay. Taking ownership and responsibility for that. But what
Mhm.
is theirs that is theirs, And so letting theirs be theirs and not taking that on, because especially for
Mhm.
some of the empaths out there, we want to fix, and we want to fix, and, we want everyone to love us, and we want everyone to
Mhm.
be happy. We want everyone to get along. Just knowing that our stuff is our stuff. That's what we can control and we can be responsible for. And their stuff is their stuff. And, unfortunately, there are some people that just choose to, misunderstand us. And it's not up to us, to give them any more fuel or any more energy,
Mhm.
in their cause, if you will. What can
Right.
you add to that to help listeners, to really have those clear boundaries, but also, not take it on as their own?
It is so hard to not take it on, especially when we're dealing with particular titles. So title of family member, title of boss, title of coworker, whatever, those titles can actually hinder us in our growth because we might have our own definitions of what that means. If you have that title, then there's a certain type of relationship. And one really helpful strategy is around writing, of course. because Teri, let's be honest, I think that everything we could find a
I
writing
love
to
it.
have a
I love it.
strategy. But a really helpful one that helped me to see this really wasn't about me. This went on for years, and I thought definitely I've got to change. I need to be different. But contorting myself didn't fix it. It just made me this bizarre version of myself, but maybe not myself at all. And so we've all probably heard of the strategy where you write a letter that you never send. So you write a letter from your perspective, and that can be helpful and therapeutic. And then flipping that, writing a letter from the other person's perspective, from what we think, as much as we could get out of that, can be really helpful. And it was truly through that where I saw this other person is working to the highest they are able to function. They are at maximum capacity. The hurt and anger that they express in life is actually not about me at all.
Yeah.
It just happens to be how they function.
Yeah.
And in this letter, that of course, I'm writing to the best of my ability from what I perceive, but
Yeah.
it does help me to get another perspective of what could that perspective be other than my own perspective. And
That's a great tool and another way of stepping into their shoes. And you're
mhm,
right, like there's limitations, right?
mhm,
And so it's a great way of seeing it and taking on a new perspective. And for me, what I hear you saying is like, finding peace with it, right? Finding peace with,
mhm.
you know, that other perspective, so that you're not taking it on and you're not owning it as yours. Because that
Right.
can create that can create a little bit more dissonance, that can create some more room between you and them. So I love that.
Mhm,
That's such a great tip and tool, using through journaling, right, obviously, and
yeah,
writing.
mhm,
And I know there's lots of other things that I'm sure you could talk about as far as like tools, as far as writing and things, engaging writing, as a superpower, super tool, right? Because I think,
mhm.
even a few days ago, we're getting ready to do this launch, and I was there was a lot of things that were happening that was out of my control, and I was like, and I was like, okay, I just gotta. I ended up going, and I found a deck of cards that I just like, okay, I just need to know, like, why is this showing up for me right now? And I was able to pull a card, and then I just went to writing, and that myself,
Oh,
that was just a powerful way just to get it out. It's like, okay, I
mhm,
just got to get this out. So using writing, is a very powerful tool in lots of different ways, in lots of
mhm.
different capacities. So I absolutely love this. Where is there any other things that you would like to add? Any other tips or tools, that you'd like to add to the listeners before we wrap up today?
Oh, sure. I'll end with a pretty cool strategy. I also offer to the listeners, I have a journal that I would be so happy to give you for free. If
Awesome.
you go to my website, it's www.unhinderedwriting.com. There's a quick little button that says free journal, your free journal. Yeah, I'd love to send you one.
Okay.
And here's a tool that we all can use. It's incredibly easy. It is when we have a goal, something that we are working on, and we're trying to get clear on that and take action towards it, I have a really easy strategy that I use, and it's simply a Venn diagram. And it's two circles with an overlapping in the middle. And
Perfect.
so in the middle is where we put our goal. So for this call, I absolutely did this. And my goal in the middle here is to inspire one person who resonates with the message that I have clearly articulated to the best of my ability. And then on the left hand side, we put in the action. So the action that we are taking. So I'm on a podcast. I have some talking points that I want to make sure that I say. So for the listener, it's in the middle, it's whatever goal you have going on. So you are going to have a conversation. You are going to send a text message. I'm sorry, these are the goals. So it's what you want in return, that you want growth in your business or whatever it is. The action is on the left, and then the right hand side, totally open, because we got to leave space for the universe or God or whatever it is that you believe that is extra. There is We know that there are synchronicities that come into our lives, and we can't always explain them. Teri went to a deck of cards and pulled a card. And so we give ourselves the knowing that there's more at play, at power to help us with our goals. And writing it down in that particular way has been life-changing for me.
I love that. I love that you create the space. So for the listeners that are just listening to this, you might want to pop over to YouTube and also check out the YouTube video of this as well, so you can actually see the drawing that she's describing. And I'm going to invite you to go to her website. And thank you, Melanie, for just, pushing past the limitations. And when you do that, you give other people permission. And so there are things our listeners know that there's barriers, there's blocks, there's challenges that we've
Mhm.
all absolutely gone through. And there's been things that have dimmed our lights in the past, but that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that it has to be that way forever. Right. And so give yourself permission to step into whatever that calling is for yourself, and shine your
Mhm.
light. So Melanie, thank you so much for shining your light and stepping back into your brilliance and your light. And I invite the listeners to do so as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Teri.
I am so grateful that you joined me for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, then there's just one thing that I would like you to do. Click to subscribe and leave me a rating and review. As my way to thank you, let's connect for a free consultation. Just reach out to me at talkingwithteri, that's TERI.com, to book your time.